Alright, so now we're here on section 1.3. 1.3 is all about finding midpoints. So if I'm on a number line, so we're only having one direction, we're going to take the two coordinates, add them together and divide by 2. It's like finding the average. That's where the midpoint is at the average. So if we take our values here, negative 5, and we're going to add it to 3, divide that by 2, I get negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So negative 1 is where the midpoint is. And let's just, for the fun of it, count here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are at the midpoint at negative 1. Now if we're in a coordinate grid, so we have two directions, the x direction and the y direction, our formula is going to be do the same thing with the y values that you did with the x values. Just add the two x values together, divide by 2, add the two y values together, divide by 2. Let's try that with a couple points. So I'm going to take my two x values, 8 plus negative 14, divided by 2, that's my x values. My y values are the second one, so I'm going to go negative 6 plus 12 and divide it by 2. And if I add that together, I get 8 plus negative 14 is negative 6 over 2, and positive 6 over 2. And so my midpoint is at negative 3, 3. On here, it can't really tell on the graph exactly where it is, so I'm going to use the coordinates again. Negative 3 plus 1 divided by 2, and 4 plus 2 divided by 2. And I get negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So at negative 1 up 3, right there, we would label that M. Can't really label it M. They picked an end point to be M, but we're going to call that the midpoint. There we go. So that's the same formula I gave you before. And we're going to find the coordinates of D if E is there and the midpoint of DF and F has the coordinates. All right. So we have find the coordinates of D if E is the midpoint at negative 6, 4, and F has the coordinates at negative 5, negative 3. Now there's a couple ways to do this. We're going to do it both ways. I'm going to say we don't know what these points are, so I'm going to call it x1 and y1. And so I'm going to say, hey, x1 plus negative 5 divided by 2 is equal to the x value of the midpoint, which is that. And we're going to do the same with the y values. y1 plus negative 3 divided by 2 is equal to 4, the y value of the midpoint. Let's do a little solving here. Let's add 5 to both sides. So we know that x1 is at negative 7. And doing the same thing over here. Adding 3. I get y1 is at 11. So the point of the other endpoint, we'll call it D, is at negative 7, 11. Now, if you're not a big fan of solving equations, there is another way to get to those answers. And I'm going to show you the second way now. If my x value is going down 1 from there to there, and that's the midpoint, it would have to go down 1 again to get to the other endpoint. So down 1 from -6 would be -7. Let's look at the y values. The y value went from -3 to 4, or up 7. To get to the other end point, it would have to go up 7 more. And what's 7 more than 4 but 11? And that's called the counting method. So I'm just counting how far it is to the midpoint. It would be that same distance to the other end point. That's the counting method. Here's our formulas. And we have an equation setup type question. What is the measure of PR if Q is the midpoint? Well, if Q is the midpoint, then we know that PQ, this distance, would have to be the same as this distance. So I'm going to call it 6 minus 3x again. So I'm going to set up my equation. I know that 14x plus 2 has to be equal to 2 of these 6 minus 3x lengths, which gives me 14x plus 2 equals 12 minus 6x. Adding 6x to both sides gives me 20x plus 2 equals 12. And subtract 2, and I get a value of 20x equaling 10, so x must be a half. That doesn't tell me the length of the whole thing. Remember what it asked for originally. It wants to find the measure of the whole thing. So I'm going to plug in half. I know that the whole length of it is 14x plus 2. And I also know that my x is equal to a half. And so I get 7 plus 2, or 9, for the whole length. All right, there is the new material for this section. There should be plenty of review material also in the lesson, and we will go over that live. We're not going to do that in my video here, but we will do that live. Good luck to you.